Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. We are here today to talk about digital transformation. I'm so excited because I'm so all over AI, at least I think I am. But today we have Bruno Gavino coming in from Portugal, who is an expert in digital transformation. His work focuses on driving measurable results, improving performance, optimizing operations, and helping businesses sell more effectively through data-driven decision-making. Wouldn't that be nice? Welcome to the show, Bruno.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're the CEO and founder of like 5 different things. And one of them is coding. And I attempted to pretend that I was going to learn a coding. I was like, oh, I'll learn coding through AI. But it turns out you actually need to have a little bit of a coding background to do that. Isn't that correct?
I mean, the barrier is clearly decreasing, and there's a lot of things you can do these days, and a lot of prototyping, a lot of fast thinking, getting solutions out there faster. But if you want to go into something deeper, more safe, and making sure we have all the T's crossed and the I's, you need to know a little bit more. That's the agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like if you wanted to, suddenly become an HR expert, you still need to know a little bit about the laws and, just the guidance. But before we jump into that, tell our listeners about yourself. How did you get to where you are now?
Oh, has been challenging. So it is. I've always been interested in technology. I have an engineering background, but I've always been fascinated by the way that people consume things, like why do certain things interest certain people and then don't interest others. I think always had like a curious mind, which always gets me in trouble building businesses and trying to create new things and push things a little bit further. I've been working in creative industries like for a long time, and since data came in, it kind of was perfect because it joined 2 parts of my brain, which is like this infinite curiosity with the ability to get data and try to get decisions based on that.
I love it. So talking today about, artificial intelligence in the workplace, I really want to focus on, saving the human aspect of your company culture for our listeners. I hear so many people and companies, we hear it all over the news. Oh, people are doing downsizing. They're going to start using technology, and then they regret it. And now they have to hire people back who may not want to come back here. I listened to your podcast on the Voice of Experts, could your AI implementation be sabotaging your revenue? So many leaders, Bruno, are racing to adopt AI for productivity gains, me included. I'm using AI left and right, but I'm using it as a tool to help me, not replace me. Company culture is built on trust, connection, and human judgment. How can organizations pair them together? How can they embrace AI without, weakening the human relationships that people thrive with in the workplace?
It's definitely a great question, and one that we will be answering for the next coming years. It's not obvious, but I'm going to say, like, we have the internal practice that every time we are tempted to think about replacements, we replace that word with enablement. So how can this, instead of replace, enable something else? And I feel like AI will always need to be treated as a tool, as it handles transactional, yet fastens most mundane tasks. So probably we have, and definitely have, more time to start thinking about other things. Not that we're currently doing that. I feel we're still going through this fascination phase where we're trying to do 10 more things in the same time we had before. But I feel like we need to start exploring more deep, empathic, like face-to-face connections, things that are really meaningful for us as humans, that I still think will still be the trigger for differentiation and creativity, ultimately. And I guess, like, you mentioned coding, and a lot of the things we do are related to this transformation. One of the things we've been doing is we've been creating tools using AI, but using development teams as well. Of course, they're making things faster in terms of developing. We're able to build and deliver much faster, but we can't leave out the human aspect of everything that we're doing. We can't lose the focus that we want to keep fueling relationships, strategic creativity. Otherwise, we will all be looking at the same things very fast.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And I love that you said it needs to be a tool, just like any other technology that we had. I was using AI yesterday to help a client, and I was like, oh, let me just throw this into AI and have it do the work for me. But then I still had to review the work and then edit it. I was coming up with like an incentive plan for an employee, and I was like, okay, let me just throw the job description here, some information. I was like, this is amazing, 6-page incentive plan that is now going to take me another half an hour to review and make sure that I edit it and make sure that it's right. Because there are some things that I put in AI, any of the AI programs I use pretty much, 4 or 5 of them. And it was like, okay, I could have probably done this quicker if I just did it myself, but it looks really nice and polished. And if I did it myself, it would have been 1 page, not 6 pages.
Yes, that's definitely one of the things we're getting flooded with a lot of I'm gonna call it information, but with not with a capital I. Definitely information that we've been piling and collecting that is not relevant for a lot of decisions. But I feel like that's obviously just the first layer of AI. The moment that we integrate AI with automation, I think we cannot ignore that organizations will need to adapt and people will have to adapt to these new roles. And that's something that it is going to be challenging, but it is also possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading a poll from Gallup, and it said that 65% of employees working in organizations that have implemented AI say it has had a positive impact on productivity and efficiency. However, you need to make sure that that same Gallup poll said that, manager support was vital. And so it's employees whose managers actively support the use of AI tools are more likely to see value from it. So we have to train the top down to say, okay, this AI is not going to replace you, or maybe it will replace some roles, but we're going to have new roles because AI is going to help us, be more productive and hopefully get more revenue. But that's not always the case, as we just mentioned. So one of my questions is, I hear a lot of concerns from HR leaders and from our listeners saying that, AI can make work feel more transactional and less personal. So in your opinion, what are the biggest warning signs that a company is maybe over automating people processes, and how can we as leaders course correct? I know, and that's a huge question, so I don't expect you have all the answers there, because if you did, we'd be millionaires, right?
Yeah, right. I definitely don't. I feel like the biggest red flag is when companies are aiming for a frictionless environment where companies are attempting to remove all the friction between human interaction. Like if employee feedback, performance reviews, creative brainstorming are just being mechanical and just incorporated into any rag or whatever, and then it's definitely a big red flag. And I feel like that will have consequences very fast. Even in terms of digital transformation, we know that the big players like Google, they're going after all of that. The fact that everything is becoming too mechanic, everything is becoming very, very raw. I would say other thing is I feel data, and I love data, of course, but the data lacks nuance. And I feel like we learned that learned that in our job, but we know that AI is exceptional at finding some patterns, but cannot understand context. There's a million examples out there, like loyalty, what's the human soul, and all of this. And I feel like, again, a lot of decisions that managers and company holders and people who have they're entrepreneurs, sometimes they have all the data, but they decide based on a hunch. And that creates huge companies, and that creates ultimate opportunities. So I feel like this creative fiction and the fact that leaders need to still have that nuanced approach to things it's a very important thing for everyone. The last thing I would say is probably I feel like we should incorporate a little bit more of chaos, and it's going to be really crazy what I'm going to say. I know, but I think we should incorporate a little bit more chaos into the systems itself. Like, acts. We have like the ability to access certain personas using AI. So, but now we should like try to incorporate things like literature, philosophy, ethics, human tension in all the prompts to make sure that it holds to what we are as humans, which is much more than just data outputs.
Yeah, it's so important. I love that you threw the word chaos in there. It's one of my favorite words, actually, because I tend to create chaos, and I also tend to, get solve chaos, resolve chaos, because we're humans, and the cool thing though with things being chaotic or is it changes the world if you embrace it a little bit, and you're like, okay, that's where I think we get the technology from is like, okay, people are afraid of chaos, but if you embrace it a little bit more, maybe we can, poke the holes through there and fix things. Going back to what you were saying about, incorporating AI and checking out for the warning signs. I was reading another study from Tech Radar that said 56% of employees said they were never consulted about how to use the AI tools that were incorporated in their roles. And so, folks that are listening, please, please, please make sure you involve your employees in decisions that are going to be huge overhauls in their jobs. Otherwise, you're just jamming some information down at them. And on top of that, that same study said only 16% of employees were actually formally trained on how to use AI. Their employers just said, here you go. We're going to help you do your job. Figure it out. Like, oh boy, that was in a Next Think Workplace AI study from 2026. And it was reported in Tech Radar. So what are your thoughts about that, about consulting employees to say, hey, we're going to improve the processes and change your job. Here you go. Just figure it out.
Well, it is definitely probably not the best way to do it. I mean, we know that if we want to buy in from our organization, we need for people to be aligned with our vision and our direction. And I feel like that's the involvement of the employee and people that work for a company or like partners in the company. It's very important. Depends also on how deep people are using AI. And I feel
Right.
like a lot of people are saying I use AI, but sure, they go on ChatGPT and they ask a few questions, but they're not still using AI as a digital transformation for their own company, their own business models.
Right.
It's not disrupting enough for them to be considered by using AI as the core of the company. So I feel like I think we should consider AI a little bit like Lego in the way that there are certain decisions that Lego in the way that we can stack things on top of each other. And I feel like we can stack AI capabilities, human perspective, business ethics. There are different blocks, and I feel like depending on how deep in those blocks you want to go, the more involvement you will need from people. Sure, if you want like a tool which just like automates a certain procedure, maybe it's part of the process of the company. You just replace the tool like you used to do before. Everyone started to have to work with Excel one day. And I feel like that's the simple version. But when you go deeper, you definitely need to bring people in and involve them. Otherwise, it's just like you're living out the most important active, which is your emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're 100% right that the majority of humans today in HR or in management and leadership, they're using AI probably more to communicate, right? Oh, let me rewrite this memo, right? Look at this job description and see what it's missing. So it's more about communication and writing and analysis versus so much more that it can do. So, with that said, just on a very, very high level, in U.S. companies, what can AI help take off of HR's plate if done right?
There's a lot of things it can do. I mean, it can again, it goes back to what's the definition of a lot of HR departments sometimes don't have the time to go deep into the HR, like the HR purpose, which is to
Right.
get to know everyone, to guide everyone in the company, and make sure that everything is attended at the same time, give them perspective, all of those things, which are critical for the well-being of someone in the company. And spend a lot of time focusing on repetitive tasks, like
Right.
performance reviews, things like that. All of those things that take a lot of time and are processes. They can be partially or all fully automated. But the rest, which is actually the most value-driven activity, it's difficult because it's based on trusts, and trust is not something that AI is very good at. So I feel like that's one of the critical milestones of every company, and I feel like it is something that we all need to think about for the future. Again, is how do we keep trustworthy with the people that work with us, and how is that perceived from outside, which more and more will be indistinguishable by these models.
Yeah, it really will. And you're right. I think so many HR folks, me included, when I was in corporate HR, now I'm an HR consultant, our job is our hours at work is spent like putting out fires versus analysis and data and making data driven decisions, which AI can help you with. But you do have to be careful because, like you just said about the trust issue, I was reading an article yesterday that AI is unintentionally discriminating against Asian and Black humans. And so we have to be careful if we're trying to use AI to automate, say, our hiring process, right? Or review these resumes or go through this or go through that. Listen, not everybody's a resume writer, and so their resume doesn't really reflect what they do. Or on the other side, somebody can be using a candidate could be using AI to help rewrite their resume to match your job description. And then it's not 100% honest, but at least it gets you to go ding, ding, ding. I want to talk to this person. And now a human or an AI system or a combination of both needs to kind of interview the person. So I feel like we're still going to need humans in every aspect of human resources. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. Now, I mean, we all go to LinkedIn these days and we see everyone like suddenly has these brilliant inspirations, like has these great sentences about businesses and about but I mean, we can still, like we've followed these people for years. We know that they haven't been doing that. So now suddenly everyone's like kind of a genius and they're all like coming up with this new data. And I feel like AI is flattening things a lot. Like a lot of the resumes you find online, a lot of people go for hiring positions, they're using AI to support their interviews, AI to support their resume, AI to do their public profile. But then when they get into a company, how is that doesn't match the company culture? So I feel like those things will still have to be human more and more. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
100% agree with you.
According to Gallup, in organizations where AI is not only available but allowed to be used, 67% of the leaders in those companies use AI frequently, compared with 52% of managers using them, AI, and 46% of employees. So it's like the leaders are using them, but maybe the employees aren't. They either may not know that they're allowed to, or they weren't trained to, or they might be afraid of it. I know many, many, many people that are completely afraid of AI, and I kind of don't blame them. I feel like right now, HR has once in a generational opportunity of using AI or not, but this now means that we might need to change our leadership skills. So, in your opinion, what new leadership skills will managers, HR managers, people managers need in an AI powered workplace to keep those employees engaged, motivated, and connected?
That's it. That's a very difficult question, but I feel like I'm gonna go back to trust.
Yeah.
I feel like trust building is the ultimate currency that companies will have. I'm gonna go with radical transparency, radical governance, the fact that everyone knows what's the direction, and how is their relationship with the company being built. I think that's very important. So trust, not only to the company, but also outside of the company. Like, think about a world where everything is generated by AI, where we have such a hard time understanding and distinguishing what's true and what's not true. And that will get even more difficult as time goes and algorithms get better. So we will all be chasing truth. We will all be chasing what's real. And companies need to be the first stakeholder in this decision, which is we need to be real to be able to sell something which is real, so that everyone gets involved and everyone understands and everyone trusts us, so that we can still relate in the same way to our customers, to our clients, and still be relevant in the market from now on.
I completely agree. I just had an idea. Like, do you think that other departments are accepting AI more quickly than, say, human resources?
The short answer is yes. I think other departments are using AI. I mean, like the departments that are using it the most are sales departments. Of
Yeah.
course, that increases substantially their ability to outreach, reply, get on time and everything. So I feel like those are the first ones. Development, like if you have like a development team or like a maintenance team, they are also getting, although that has a little bit more, it's more tricky, but they are also trying to implement that, incorporate that into their procedures. But I think HR is still a little bit more afraid. I'm going to say it afraid, but but is rightful in the way that a lot of companies are not focusing on HR with all the potential that HR could have. They're focusing still, like we mentioned, on the process, but not on the value. And I feel like the other day I was discussing this with a friend, and I feel like there was a time where CEOs came from engineering and then CEOs came from management. I feel like the next round of CEOs is going to be HR people, the people who are looking into organizations from a human perspective. They're able to extract the maximum we have as humans and then use it as a governance and use it as the potential for that company to be something much bigger. So I feel like the next big CEOs for the Fortune 500 are going to come from HR departments.
Yeah, I completely agree too, because we are going back to the word you keep using, trust. And HR, good HR people, that's really what you focus on, is the trust and the transparency, and letting employees know that, it's a two-way street. I trust you, you trust me, and then ta-da, our retention improves, because it is expensive to recruit these days. It is so expensive. And so I personally tell all of my clients, like, I'd rather you go the extra mile now with your current employee, retain that knowledge, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, than have to go and spend how much time and money to recruit. But then it's not even just the recruiting, it's the training that new person all over again, and then hoping that they stay. So it's like this big cycle. What other, since you're a data expert and, an AI expert, what other opportunities does a company have, focusing kind of on HR, to use AI? I kind of mentioned recruiting, but what else can they use AI for?
I mean, I think like in any departments or any skill in the company, I think everyone should look into their own data, but try to understand which tasks they're mostly involved with. Try to understand where they spend more time, and try to ask this question, which is this a process? And if it's a process, it's possible that it's can use AI to speed up that process. If it's thinking, if it's consideration, then much more likely it's not possible to be replaced by an automated process. So I'm gonna say, like, in terms of HR, anything which takes most of your time and it's repetitive, possibly you can do it using AI. But if it's not, that's where you should be focusing most of your energy these days.
To start with, yeah, repetitive actions. I do love that very much. There's so much, I teach people how to use AI, but I'm even teaching at the basic level. And it's really like communication, emails, memos, interview questions, how to analyze this really weird situation at work. How do I handle it? Looking at the laws, it's basically research and communication, but there's so much more that we're missing. And the other thing that I tell even my friends is, like, AI is not necessarily new. It's new to readily accessible to the everyday person, right? AI has been around for quite some time, and we realize this when we talk to the lady in the machine over there to say, "Hey, play me this song." Like, okay, that didn't just happen.
Right.
I love it. I think, what we're both saying here is the best AI strategy is maybe more human, not less human, right?
It is the differentiating factor because if you think about like most of the models that companies are using are coming from the same sources. So which means like we will have a very tunnel visions and very average vision approach to data, which means like we will have a hard time distinguishing what's what company doing and what's the next one doing and what's the department doing and what's the next one doing. So I feel like the distinguishable factor still is human creativity and the fact that we as humans, because we can work together and because we can think together and come up with disruptive ideas, it's still the driving force. Not that companies don't need reskilling, of course, but I feel like that's a different question. But I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to agree that the human is still the same.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, going back to what you were saying about trust, but also about empathy and critical thinking and relationship building. Relationships are what keep people at the workplace engaged, doing their job, not just there taking a paycheck. For the folks that are listening, you need to make sure that your leaders are still able to mentor and coach and show emotional intelligence so that it is truly a two-way street, and realize that just like with any other technology that we have come across, including what you and I are doing right now on a Zoom call, this wasn't available a long time ago. I would have to fly out there to Portugal to meet you, which I'm not opposed to doing. But you just think about it, like we were not able to do this how many years ago, and we had to train our employees to accept that. And now it's just part of what we do. So this is another movement in technology, and really understanding for the folks that are listening that maybe your leaders are saying, yeah, I'm not adopting AI. I would invite you to check out a Gallup research. It's the Gallup Workplace AI Research. It was done, I believe, in 2026, and it has a lot of great statistics and information.
Yeah, I think it's if you're not starting to incorporate that AI or any of these methodologies to your structures, you're missing out a little bit. I also understand it is different from from the older digital transitions because it feels a little bit more overwhelming. It feels more overwhelming for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, of course, is now we're all more connected, so we see things every day. We see how fast things move. We see these companies dumping hundreds of billions of dollars into data centers and that pressure we feel them all. We feel that pressure, and I feel like that's unique. I'm going to say that's probably only the industrial revolution is probably the closest to us to this transformation we're going through. Now, I would say technology, we've adapted super easily to technology because it makes our life easier. And the thing here is like, how can keep it making it our life easier, but keep us relevant in the center of the game? That's the challenging question. And I feel like if people feel overwhelmed, it's rightful, but I also feel like it's a unique opportunity to go from the beginning. And I think that's an opportunity for everyone.
Thank you so much, Bruno Gavino, CEO and founder of Code Design, Voice of Experts, and LLM Search Console. I love that you're in love with creativity and technology. Take care, everybody. Stay safe and have some fun with AI. But don't forget, do not sacrifice trust, because you will then be sacrificing engagement, leadership, and overall culture.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.